even with our mistakes in life, we need to trust God still has a plan for us. I know how that feels. You're moving along in life and you make a mistake. You sin. You do something that's not right. And you feel benched. Maybe you got involved in drugs, and maybe to the point where it's an addiction. God still has a plan if you turn to Him. Maybe you've struggled in your marriage, and maybe you've had an affair or divorce, or you've gotten pregnant outside of marriage, or whatever. God still has a plan if you turn His way. Or maybe you've turned away from God, or you've spent some time in jail, you've done something wrong. Whatever it is, if you turn to God, He has a plan. God still has a plan. You cannot go too far down where God will not pick you up and allow you to work the plan. Moses murdered somebody. That's a pretty big mistake. And yet God used him in a tremendous way. Sure, we need to deal with the consequences of our sin. But God can take the garbage sin of our lives and work it into something beautiful, to work it into His plan. But it doesn't mean we continue to sin. There are consequences to sin, and we will face those. But God wants to take the garbage of our life and make it beautiful. As well, when we make mistakes, when we sin, we're saying to God, I don't want to go your way. I don't want to go to your plan. I want to go my plan. I want to do things my way. And the question comes down, whose plan are you going to trust? Are you going to trust God's plan? He promises in His Word that He has plans for shalom for us if we follow His plan. Or we can follow our own plan. We saw in the news this past week of an example of someone who tried to follow their own plan and got in big trouble. How many of you saw the Tiger Woods apology? And he stood up and said it very clearly. I thought I was entitled to fulfill all that was tempting me. He said he was selfish. He was not following what he should have followed. And we get just that same way. We can either go God's direction, and it won't be easy. Because all the world doesn't want you to follow God's direction. All the world wants you to follow your own passions, desires, and lusts of whatever temptation is out there. But yet we've seen, even in someone who doesn't believe in God, that only creates havoc and damage. It may feel great for the moment, but it never, ever ends well. I know when I was in a fork in the road in my own life. I was a believer, trying to live life God's way, and then I felt entitled. I felt that I could go after whatever my heart's desire, and got involved in sin. And I was brought to a fork in the road, either to live life God's way or to fulfill my own desires and passions, even under the flavor of looking Christian. I was living a lie, saying I'm Christian, which means little Christ, like Christ, yet not living that way. I was a hypocrite because my actions in my life said one thing, and yet my facade, I carry my Bible, looking all Christian like at church. And yet I was very far from that in my heart. I was living a lie. And the truth is that we can get that way. But despite our mistakes, we can turn to go God's direction. And when that happens, Jesus becomes Lord of our life. So the question is He really Lord? Or are you living a lie? Are you being a hypocrite? Are you choosing to not go God's direction and go your own plan? It's a choice that each one of us have to make. What plan do we really trust? For trust, that's life-giving worship. Like an athlete that is resolved to practice, we are to, despite circumstances, stand resolved that God has a plan. Like the sculptor, We are to take action and to chip away of that block of marble. We are to, despite adversities and adversaries, believe God has a plan. Like garbage that can be made into beautiful art, God can make something wonderful despite our mistakes as we trust that God has a plan. That's the active, life-giving worship God is calling us out to. So what's your choice? Are you going to choose to go and live God's plan by really trusting in it, believing in it, being resolved to go that direction? Or are you going to go your own way? You've never gone too far where you cannot turn back and go God's direction. Would you bow with me in prayer? As your head's bowed and your eyes closed, where are you in life? Are you at that fork in the road where it's time to quit living the lie? Are you in that place where you need to make a decision to move, to live life under God's plan? You've been trying your own way. Don't wait another moment. Make today the day that you put that stake in the ground saying, I'm going to live God's way as best as I know how. God never expects us to be perfect. We're just us, warts and all. So I want to encourage you. I'm just going to give you a moment in silent prayer. Talk to God. Maybe ask him what you should do. And then act upon it. Believe. And maybe talk to him saying, Lord, forgive me for where I've been. I've made mistakes, just maybe not as bad as Moses, or maybe as bad as Moses. And I need to live life your way. Help me to do that.